All right, we're back here on the Frank Beckmann Show with a man who, look, he's got a horse in the race. Let's say that first of all. You know that. He supports Mitt Romney. He's the congressman from Livonia, Thaddeus McCotter, but there's always a good resource on all of these issues because he says what he thinks, and he thinks about what he says, most importantly, and we're glad to have him back. How are you?
Hey, Frank. Usually I hope to think about it before I say it.
Well, and I'm glad you do. Now, settle the argument here. Who would come up for air less in a conversation in a room? Would it be Vice President Biden or Mayor Bernero? And do you think you could compete with them?
Well, I got to go with the Michigan guy. I'm a homer. I got to go with Verge. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but I remember during the auto industry loan debates, he was very active. He was out there, and that, for our point of view from Michigan, his advocacy for the auto industry and the workers, I think, was very helpful that he didn't come up for air.
No, he was a great advocate. You're right. And, hey, let's give the administration credit. What they did with the auto industry worked. And, we may not like parts of the way they handled the bankruptcy, overturning established bankruptcy law and, changing the chain of creditors. But what they did worked. And we're better off for it in Michigan right now because it did work.
Well, it was painful, and we have to remember that the concern a lot of us have still is that the government will continue to meddle in there rather than let the market forces and the people who actually make the cars and design them bring those companies back. But it's certainly also important to remember that President Bush first authorized the bridge loan to the auto industry at that point in time, which was very critical.
$17 billion worth.
And as I like to joke, and it came out of the TARP that was headed for Wall Street, so that money had already been appropriated to all the wrong people, and it went back to Main Street, which is often overlooked by a lot of our conservative friends. But finally, I'd like to point out to my Democratic friends that by authorizing that bridge loan, you hear a lot of complaints about the UAW and others, and I say, well, at the final analysis, George Bush was the second Republican president to save a union.
I like that line. Second Republican president to save the union. You're clever, We could have used you in those debates.
Well, the establishment's not going to tell you who's anti-establishment and can do them harm.
No, that's true. But let's get into what's happening within the party now. Mitt Romney winning in Florida. He picks up 50 more delegates. What does he have, 85 now total? And he needs 1,144 total to win the nomination. Put Florida into perspective for me. There were some who wanted to say, this is it. This is the one that'll decide it. Is it? Marco Rubio even said the winner in Florida wins the nomination.
Yes, well, at the risk of stating the obvious, everybody knows that it's a critical state in the general election. It's a much more diverse state than people often think of it as. And what happens is even that means that the Republican electorate is very diverse, too. And I think Senator Rubio is touching on that, especially as a Cuban-American. So when you start to go through it, you see the ability of Governor Romney to not quite get 50%, but to roll up a substantial double-digit victory. I think it shows that heading to Nevada and heading obviously to his home state of Michigan, that he's going to have quite a bit more momentum as he gets past those states. And I think that many people are going to start to wonder if any of the other candidates can win after Michigan. I mean, I think we have a very important role, and I encourage everyone to vote in that primary because it's going to be watched, and it's going to be watched for the purposes of seeing whether or not Governor Romney is going to be our inevitable nominee, as it looks at the present time like he might be.
Turnout was down, though, in Florida. What does that say to you? It's been lower, we're told, throughout the campaign so far. Does it mean anything?
Well, people often read things into primary numbers, and I remember in 2002 when the Democrats had a higher primary number, but those are not necessarily factors of the specific race. You can have ballot initiatives, you can have other things. Obviously, if people are competing for something, you can have other numbers, but it doesn't always translate into the general election because they're two vastly different choices. The first choice is going to be which one of the nominees which one of the candidates for the nomination do you think is your standard bearer? And then the other one is who should actually serve in the office between the two parties. And as a Republican, I think that the differences between the candidates here in the primary are one thing, but the differences between whoever our nominee is and President Obama are going to be enough to unite us behind ours.
All right, now you mentioned earlier the establishment in the Republican Party. Who is the establishment? Because you listen to say a Rush Limbaugh show, and he's telling you the establishment wants Mitt Romney. You tell me the establishment is different. Who is it?
Well, I think you have different organizations of it. You have people who believe that obviously the pundit class, which believes they are the ones who are going to filter your candidates for you, and then you have the money class, which is going to do the same thing through their financial contributions, and then you're going to have the party apparatus. Now, one of the things that we're seeing, and you and I talked off air about, is that the parties have yet to adapt to what is happening in the economy around us. You'd ask Vice President Biden, when he did come up for air, what kind of economy he would model America on. And I think that we're all missing the point when we start talking about, how we would model it. What's happening in the age of globalization, the communication revolution, is that everything is becoming more entrepreneurial, more individual initiative-based. We have to be more industrious. And the highly centralized vertical bureaucracy is crumbling. The government is trying to protect itself from that by taxing you and spending and trying to control more of the economy, which is absolutely wrong to do. But in many ways, both parties tend to do that, too, because they have vested interest in the perpetuation of the status quo, i.e. their own power, status, or prestige. And so what happened, former Speaker of the House, which I think, but I mean, look, in fairness to Governor Romney, I've never seen someone who's been called the establishment have so many people floated as potential candidates against him by the establishment. Every day it seems to go by. Even at this late date, they're starting to resurrect the candidacies of people like Governor Pawlenty, a nice man, but he's out of the race and he's supporting Governor Romney. Or
Mitch
they're talking
Daniels.
about, Mitch Daniels. So that's what I talk about, especially with the pundit class of the party. I mean, if Governor Romney were the establishment choice, you wouldn't be seeing these people still at this late hour trying to bring people into a race to muddy the waters and actually, I would argue, make it harder to defeat President Obama. The good news, Frank, is that as with our economy, as with our personal lives, what you're going to see is eventually the parties and eventually big government are going to have to recognize the reality of a horizontal world. And as the social communications continue to advance, the grassroots will continue to be empowered, and that you'll see the actual combination of grassroots candidates and grassroots activists with the ability to counter some of the things that big government or the big party structures have been able to rein in to date.
Can Mitt Romney ever be truly not a champion, but a favorite of the grassroots movement? It's suggested that his wealth precludes that from happening.
Well, you and Mr. Hafner were discussing on the air about words, not deeds, and any president of the United States is going to be measured by their deeds. The American people are very practical. FDR wound up being a populist, and he came from a pedigree, obviously, the Roosevelt family. When you look at the Kennedys, Robert Kennedy especially, was very concerned about poverty, very concerned about empowering the individual, not advancing the welfare state over them, where government controlled them. So it depends on what you do, and for Mitt Romney, or if it's President Obama, if they're reelected, it's going to continue to be measured by their works, faith and acts, baby, faith and acts.
Well, exactly right. In the end, that's what it is for any person who's eventually elected into office. Does he perform the same there as he said he would when he was on the trail? There are many who make that complaint about Obama, that he was a whole different candidate than he is a president.
Yes, and it comes from the fact that you never know what's going to happen when you're elected. It's obviously you are the leader of state, you are the individual entrusted with the governance and the executive branch of the American people. And people grow in the office or they shrink. The one thing you can't do is hide, and it's up to that individual and in combination with the circumstances of the times they face to whether they grow or whether they shrink.
Yeah. Well, the one thing, though, is government never seems to learn its lesson. We get back to Biden's comment, what do you want America's economy to look like? I want it to look like it used to. Well, instead, you're making government look like France and look like Greece with all the things you're doing there. Why don't you see that? Why don't you learn that lesson? It's, is what comes to mind. And I don't know why that lesson's not learned. But let's get back to this. We can talk all day about theory and all of that. But let's talk some more about what's happening here in Michigan now with the primary 4 weeks away. It's going to come upon us quickly, and we're going to see Mitt Romney here in his home state. It almost becomes, I would think, a must-win for him. It's like the pressure's on now. You got to win it. You're at home, and the other question, though, is who will be the rival? Will it still be Gingrich as the biggest rival? Bill Kristol wrote a column at the website for Weekly Standard today in which he says, look out for Santorum. I mean, it could be Santorum if he does well in between in the caucuses in some of the other small states.
Yeah, I think you're already starting to see from some individuals the desire to see, quote-unquote, the right united. But in fairness to Speaker Gingrich, obviously, he did better in Florida than Rick. Rick had God prayers out to him, his daughter, Bella, and he had some problems that he had to take away, rightly so, from the campaign to address that come first. But he'll also, you'll head into the caucus states after this, and I think that some people, again, the establishment trying to stop Governor Romney, the irony from some statements that people have made. But when you look at it, what's going to happen is they're going to want the combination of candidates to come together, and it's a classic pundit move because it's all theoretical and abstract. The flesh and blood candidates, they're all running against each other, and for them just to think that they're going to drop out and just hug each other and every one of their followers will follow each other is not going to happen. I think Governor Romney has a chance to pick up candidates from anybody that drops out of the race, just as it would be if somehow he decided at the last second not to do it. So I don't put much stock in it, and I do think it's one more attempt to derail what's happened. And at this point, I get a little frustrated as fairness, as a Romney supporter. The governor's coming off a double-digit victory in Florida, and you have pundits starting to talk about how he could be stopped. And I think that what you're doing by saying that is you're not respecting what Florida has decided at this point. And you're not respecting what has been decided at this point by the electorate, because they're clearly sending the signal that despite what Mr. Crystal and others say, the Florida GOP certainly was very comfortable with Governor Romney as their nominee.
So let's name some names for the establishment. Is the establishment the media experts, the Limbaughs, the Crystals, the Hannitys, who opine on all of this, or are the insiders the people who run the party inside, the Boehners and McConnells and company? Are they the ones pushing this?
Well, naming names is so much, I hate to engage in punditry, but I'll just say this. It's the people with the vested interest in perpetuating the status quo. And I'll let individuals make up their own minds, because as a grassroots person coming out of the grassroots, I don't need somebody like me to tell you who it is. I'll let you figure it out yourselves. I trust your judgment.
All right, but Romney is the agent of change to you. He's not the establishment candidate. It's interesting. You're the first person who suggested that.
Well, look, again, I have a different take on this. Is the more the establishment tries to find people, again, Mr. Crystal, that tries to tell you who can stop Governor Romney, why would the establishment try to stop their own candidate?
Good question. Why'd they try to stop you?
Water under the Mackinac Bridge, baby.
Hey, we had a question from a listener who apparently saw you on Red Eye. I have to go to bed before that show is on. It's on Fox News.
Well, I haven't been on Red Eye since April.
That's what they want to know. How come? When are you coming back?
Well, I think they've just moved on. I think, I still talk to Greg. And
well, they moved on from you? They got bored with you, or what?
I think so. It was nice. I think it's kind of a nice way to have it ended, is that, Greg was saying that I should put my hat in the presidential ring, and then that's a nice way to remember the last appearance. So in the interim, they've also had other people on, like Governor Johnson. I think they've had Herman Cain on. I think Ron Paul. So other people are getting a chance to do it. As George Harrison once said, all things must pass.
Yeah, did you play guitar on the show?
No, I never did that, although they did do a little video off a joke thing I wrote for Gutfeld and played for him.
Yeah, but it's on at like 3 a.m, right?
Well, they got these things, Frank, called TiVo, DVR.
I know, but still.
I know that's television.
But look, you have to watch that while you're trying to divvy up the time that you've already set aside for all the other things you DVR'd. Hey, did you watch Jennifer Granholm's show the other day?
No, I'd like to see it. We served together in Wayne County, so I'm wishing her well. I don't agree with her, but I'm wishing her well, and especially given that the station is not really aimed at independents.
No, neither. She proclaims, it's not all that partisan yelling at each other, but I'll let you be the judge after you watch it. But
she's not. She's not gonna. She's never been a strident person. But that doesn't mean that the show won't wind up that way with the people you put on it.
No, but she does it in a more subtle way. That's the way she operates. And a perfect example of that is the set for the show. They've got this brick wall behind her that's very attractive, nice-looking set. And then they have
attractive brick wall.
Yeah, attractive brick wall, yeah. It reminded me of Michigan Stadium is why it was attractive.
My grandfather was a bricklayer. He'd appreciate it.
See that? Mine was a carpenter, so I appreciate that type of work. At any rate, right. So on this wall are all these campaign stickers and posters and the like, and wouldn't you know it, each and every one of them is for a Democrat running for office right now, including Debbie Stabenow.
Well, maybe you're saying I should send her one of my bumper stickers?
I don't think she'll put it up there for you. I can almost assuredly say she won't. I ran by the question to a lawyer who deals with FEC, Federal Election Commission issues, and had it run by him to find out whether this could possibly be some sort of, you've got so many rules with campaigns now, whether that's a violation. They have, I mean, that's just absolute advertising for the campaigns of candidates in different states around the country, whether it was a candidate from Minnesota. There was one from Minnesota, North Dakota, Kirsten Gillibrand, Stabenow. I can't remember them all, but they were from everywhere in the country. It was amazing, all these Democrats. And and basically the lawyer said it's best to leave well enough alone. Nobody's watching it anyways, and he said the war room should more appropriately be called the bore room.
Well,
so
Frank, I'm like,
she didn't get a great review from him.
You just said that the governor tends to do things more subtly. It doesn't strike me as particularly subtle.
What I mean is, she's not on the air promoting the candidate. She just has their campaign sticker behind her. That's more subtle. Come on now.
It's not even like a Grateful Dead or anything.
No, not even. All right, listen, thanks for the time. And I think you could give Biden and Bernero a run if you really set your mind to it. I really do.
Well, I got to go now. Thanks, Frank.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for the time.
Bye.
Congressman Thaddeus McCotter. Always great to have him here on the Frank Beckmann Show at WJR to help